Please be seated. Thank you. Let's go on the record. Let the record reflect that counsel for the state, counsel for the defendants are all present. Mr. Holmes, you may continue with your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. And before we get going, may I ask the court to make sure that we have the proper input?
Okay, which one do you need?
I think it's the Elmo, Your Honor. Thank you.
And Judge, the other thing I'd like to do is present the court with something that we filed this morning. It is a brief on the difference between expert and lay opinion related to the defense saying they wanted to call back Detective Stone to talk about the gun and what you could see through the gun. We've got filed in both cases. I'm just going to give you one. It's the same exact motion filed in both cases, and I'm just giving you a courtesy copy.
Okay. Let me know if I hit the right button here.
Okay.
Is it the podium HDMI?
Yeah.
No? Which one?
Right here.
That one. Okay. Okay. Okay, I think you got it. You
All right,
ready?
may we proceed?
Go ahead.
All right. Officer Render, yesterday we were talking about how it is that we know that some of the objects we're handling and presenting here in court are what they appear to be and what they claim to be. Does the Albuquerque Police Department have a process for ensuring chain of custody for evidence items?
After they've been checked into evidence?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
What kind of documentation is kept to make sure that chain of custody is maintained?
It's an electronic log.
Can you describe how that's made?
In the computer program that we use, anytime evidence is checked out or transferred to anybody, it's noted in the system. And each item of evidence, it keeps track of all of that for each individual item.
And are those logs created and maintained by somebody at Albuquerque Police Department?
The evidence unit, yes.
And is it
I didn't hear the answer.
The evidence unit?
Thank you.
is it the ordinary practice of the evidence unit to create and maintain those logs?
Yes.
And are those logs created and maintained by somebody with knowledge of the events? Let me ask it this way. When an entry happens in the log, is it made at or around the time that that piece of evidence is taken out or put back in?
Objection calls for speculation.
In the
I'll
ordinary,
allow him to ask the question. Go ahead.
in the ordinary course of how these logs are created and maintained, is the entry of when an object is checked into evidence or pulled out of evidence made at or near the time of that event?
Yes.
And is it made by a person with knowledge of that event or from information transmitted by a person with knowledge of that event?
Yes.
Now, we spent a lot of time talking about the two paper envelopes that you have in front of you. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm handing you what's been previously marked for identification purposes. It states Exhibit 53I. What is that?
53 what?
I.
Aye.
Oh, lowercase I, maybe one. I wrote a lowercase I there.
It's the evidence log for the item indicated as P400.
Okay, and what item is indicated in that large envelope that you have in front of you?
P400.
And who brought that to court here today?
Detective today?
Yes.
I was checked out by Detective Jeff Stone.
I'm sorry, the
The
log
actual item.
Yeah, 53I.
I brought that this morning.
Okay. Move the admission of 53I, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I object for several reasons. First of all, as he said, he just brought it to court. We've never seen this document before this morning when counsel was kind enough to give us a copy, or not a copy, but to just show us that earlier, right before we started today, number one. Number two, I don't think there's been any foundation laid for that he is the custodian of records of this. And number three, he does it, it's a hearsay document, so if they want it in, they're going to have to lay the proper foundation for, I think what they're trying to do is a business record, but they haven't done that, Your Honor.
Any response?
I think we have made the business record foundation, Your Honor, which does not necessarily require the records custodian. It could be the records custodian, but it could also be somebody who has knowledge of how these are created. For example, the CADS reports in this case have been introduced through the testimony of officers who are familiar with how they're created. And then as far as the fact that they were only shown today, that's only in response to the defendant's consistent challenge of the testimony of the officers that the chain of custody was maintained appropriately. And so we're just attempting to give the defense the information they seem to be wanting yesterday.
I believe the foundation for a business record exception has been laid. I'll admit 53I over objection.
Now, we talked yesterday about during the processing of officers on scene, their weapons are taken and photographed. In this case, did you take photographs of any weapons?
I did.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm handing you what's been previously marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 61. What is that?
It is the photograph of the rifle collected from Dominic Perez.
And who took that picture?
I did.
When you took that picture, you wrote some information on a Post-it note. Why did you do that?
Just to document the case it was associated with, when I took the photograph, what it was I photographed, and my initials indicating that I did take the photograph.
And what did you designate that rifle number as?
F1.
And is that picture that you have there in your hands a fair and accurate depiction of that rifle with the Post-it note identifying it on the day that you took that picture?
Yes.
Move the admission of State 61, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor. 61 will be admitted.
All right, and so now that everyone knows what we're talking about, what is this thing up here?
Objection to the form of the question, what is this thing up here?
What is the thing, what is the large object I'm pointing to with my pen there?
The upper receiver?
Okay, I'm sorry. Is this the rifle that you took a picture of?
Yes.
Okay. I asked that because, of course, no one in the gallery, with the exception of you, was looking at the picture when we were talking about it.
I see.
Okay, and what is this yellow square down there?
That's the Post-it note.
Okay, and what does it say right here?
F1.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, and counsel, you don't need to ask me anymore if you need to approach the witness. Just go ahead and do it.
Sure. All right, thank you, Judge. I'm handing you what's been previously marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 62. What is that?
It's a photograph of the rifle collected from Keith Sandy.
Who took that picture?
I did.
And did you follow the same process, including the Post-it note information?
I did.
What did you designate that rifle as?
F2.
And is that picture a fair and accurate depiction of that rifle and that Post-it note as it was when you took that picture that day?
Yes.
Move the admission of State 62, Your Honor.
Any objection, 63?
No objection, Your Honor.
62, Your Honor, I apologize.
I'm sorry, 62. No objection, Your Honor. 62 will be admitted.
Now that it's in, is this the rifle?
It is.
And what is this yellow square down there?
The Post-it note.
And what is that piece of information I'm pointing at with my pen?
F2.
When you're out on scene, were there a lot of objects scattered all about?
Yes.
At some point, did you come across a black bag with a lot of items inside of it?
Yes.
And did you collect that black bag?
I did.
After you collected it, what happened to it?
It's taken back to the crime van, stored in there until we could transport it back to the crime lab.
At some point, were the objects in that black bag and the black bag itself examined?
Yes.
And were you there when that happened?
Yes.
I'm handing you what's been previously marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 19C-5. What is in that plastic bag?
The small black bag and all of its contents.
And is that small black bag and all of its contents in the same or substantially same condition as when you had it checked back into evidence, with the exception of the fact that it's now been opened here in court?
It is.
Move the omission of 19C-5.
Any objection?
Can I see the bag?
Yes.
Thank you. No objection. Other than, well, let me make a small objection.